Hey everybody, Jim from rainforestationpets.com. I'm going to do an unboxing today for a plant grow light. We're doing a series of these because we're doing a comparison, you could say a plant light shootout. On the rack behind me we're going to install lights on there and see whether they work in the real world. This one is by Roleadro. Surprisingly enough, we decided to test 4 lights. 2 that are the red-blue spectrum lights that basically just have red and blue light, obviously, with nothing else. Excuse me. So the red and blue ones just have red and blue LEDs. This is a full spectrum light, so it has pretty much white-looking light coming out of it. There are a lot of people that argue one is better than the other. We're going to test it in the real world and see what really happens. Again, this is the Roleadro. This one was pretty much in the middle of our price range. We wanted to get lamps that were $30 or less. This one was $25.99, plus we had a $3 off coupon. And so that's a pretty good deal. It's interesting because it's so much smaller than a lot of the ones we looked at. It's all aluminum, except for this obviously is plastic. It's got some pretty heavy-duty lights in there. It looks like pretty LED chips. According to this, it was number 160 out of on the best-selling list for plant grow lights on Amazon. It has a 4.7 overall review ranking, which is good. 4.7 out of 5 stars. 50 LEDs. It just says 3,500 degrees Kelvin is the lighting, which Kelvin is a measurement of lighting color, whether it's warm or cold, and I'll link to a more detailed description about that if you're interested. Power equivalent is not listed. It doesn't even tell me how many watts this thing draws, so we're going to test that. We're going to try and figure out how much light's coming out of here, how much energy is going in, to see if it's worth it or not. The way they measure these lights, a lot of times they call it PAR. That stands for photosynthetically active radiation. That's the light that causes plants to do photosynthesis. But that's not a measurement, that's an identification of the type of light. The way they normally measure that is they want to measure how much of that light's actually hitting a surface, say the leaves of a plant. And so to measure that, they use photosynthetic photon flux density. One of these days I'll actually be able to say that right the first time. But photosynthetic photon flux density, that's the number of photons that create photosynthetic action in the plant that are actually hitting. And the measurement is normally in a meter square area every second. And so it is measured in micromoles per square meter per second. And the reading on this one is 400 micromoles at 12 inches. So we're going to test that out, but that's saying at about this height, 400 micromoles are hitting this area. It doesn't say how big an area, although it's supposed to be a 1 meter square. This light's going to have drop off. So we got to compare that and see what we actually get with our light meter, which actually measures in lux, because if you want to measure photosynthetically active radiation, let's try that again. If we can find one, a meter that actually reads the power of the photosynthetically active radiation that's hitting a certain point, you're going to be looking at about $400, $300 somewhere in that vicinity starting out. So what I instead bought was an LED light meter that measures in lux, and you can find calculators pretty easily that'll convert that to ppfd, which I'm going to say that now instead because I can actually say ppfd without stumbling. But it's not going to be scientifically accurate. This whole study that we're doing is not science. This is fun, and it's going to give you some ideas to compare lights to each other, but not necessarily what's perfectly measurement of what's coming out of them. So before you give me comments about how poor my science is, this isn't science. We're just doing this for fun. And we're doing this because we've realized that we had to bring my wife's plants in and we didn't have a good place that was going to get enough natural sunlight, so we needed to buy something. So we started looking at these online, and she very quickly found something she was interested in and bought it, and I spent the next week going down a rabbit hole, as my friend Dave Reddy would say, who knows me well. And so I got to a certain point where I had a whole bunch of information, and I thought maybe other people would be interested in knowing this. If you already know this, you're in the wrong place. But if you're just looking at getting plant grow lights, and maybe you're just growing house plants, or you've got some kind of high light requirement plants like succulents or carnivorous plants, which is what we're going to be using for our test, and you're not sure where to start, this might give you an idea of where to start. Obviously, these lights are not the kind of power you would need for like a commercial nursery, or if you're raising, let's call it a cash crop. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you know what I mean. But for our intents and purposes, I think that these will do okay on, we're going to be using the rack behind me, which has 18-inch wide shelves, which should fit these lights pretty well. So, in just a minute, let's see if we missed any details here. Warranty, 12 months, 30 days, 50,000 hour lifetime on the chips, which is pretty good. One of the reasons this is so small is because it has LM301H LED diodes, which are pretty powerful for their size, and they're able to put a little more power into this. And I've said in other videos, you have to look at, when you're looking at these plant grower lights, three factors. You're looking at features, you're looking at power, and you're looking at price. And if you want a lot of power at a low price, you're not going to have too many features. If you want good features at a low price, you're not going to get a lot of power. If you want power and good features, you're probably going to be paying a lot more than this. But this is made out of metal, so that's not too bad for this price range. And it has an on-off switch, and it has a number of different ways you can hang it with that. So give us just a minute to get our other stuff set up so that we can do the other measurements, and we'll give it a go. Hold on. Okay, so this is the Roleadro full spectrum light that's supposed to have the high power LEDs in it. And I don't know if you can see it, but we're running about 700 lux just from the studio lights in here. So here we gotta subtract that and plug this booger into our, now remember this is supposed to be producing 400 micromoles at 12 inches. So we've got this set, it's just a little over 12 inches. Let's move it down here. Just a hair at 12 inches. Oh, no, that's a little too far. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, still work this. Good enough for what we're doing. Okay, so plug this into the watt meter and turn it on. And we got 22.75 watts. And this one is cranking out. You can't see it on there, but 3200, 3300. You can find the center there. It drops off fairly quick when you get away from the center there. This is the Auto Ranger's kicking in on this so that it can handle what we got here. Looks like, okay, let's say 3,100 lux. Hey, future Jimmy here. I don't want you to have to sit through any more of that painful explanation of why I'm a writer and not a mathematician. I was off by a factor of 10. I didn't notice that the range had shifted to 20,000 or to 200,000. So actually what it was, my high point on that light was 34,000 lux at 12 inches. I'm not even going to try and get into what ppfd that is right now. So yeah, it's pulling 22.75 watts, 34,000 lux directly under the light. You could see it drops off fairly quickly. When we mounted it on the rack up here, I have a graphic on the website that you can see these numbers. But basically, once we had it about 12 inches above the plants, we were getting only about 23,800 lux directly under the light. At the back edge of the shelf, we still had 6,500 lux, but that's a pretty precipitous drop. The Mylar helped with that because at the front of the edge, directly in front of that same spot, we only had 3,100 lux. And when you get to the end of the shelf off of the light, because the light was put in the same orientation as the shelf, the back corner was only 1,700 lux. The middle part of the shelf, directly adjacent to the light, was only 2,000 lux, and the front corner, without the advantage of the Mylar in the front, was only 1,000 lux. So that's going to be problematic down the road when we do our video on the plant light comparison, because we do need to cover an entire 4-foot long shelf. So we've got some pictures of what it looks like in place. But let's just skip my whole mathematical debacle here, and we'll look at those pictures. So I went back and rearranged the light and put it the same direction as the 10 by 20 trays are going to be, and came up with a whole bunch of different numbers that sound a whole lot better. With it set up like that, it's about 6 inches away from the end of the shelf, pretty much dead center over the 10 by 20 tray. And it's getting about, I'm getting about 33,800 directly under the light again. At the front edge of the shelf, 10,600, and at the back edge of the shelf, 16,000. All the way to the right, I'm getting 13,000, and that sounds pretty good because you can fit 4 10 by 20 trays on this shelf, which means you could put 4 of these lights on there. So that 13,000 would be multiplied by the drop off of 2 lights together. So that should be even better. So there's a little interesting thing there. The other thing is I just looked at the price. Prices dropped down to 18 bucks a piece on these, plus they still have a $3 coupon. So you could basically do your entire shelf for the cost of 3 shop lights that we're using on our control shelf, and get probably a lot more light and a lot better spectrum. So this is actually looking like a pretty good light at this point. Not for what we originally planned it for, but for what it could actually do. So take a look at it. The Roleadro, no N, like I've been saying through the whole video. Roleadro, there's a link down in the web page. It's an affiliate link, so if you buy something from that link, I do get a little kickback. Doesn't cost you a penny more, but it helps me keep making these videos. So thanks for watching, and take a look at these lights. The Roleadro, they make an entire range. I'll also put a link to the Roleadro store, and they make an entire range from absolutely entry level up to pretty serious looking grow lights. So take a look at that, and thanks for watching.